Let's start our discussion about references with something in most everyone's comfort zone, a table of contents. Let's refer to it just as a TOC for now because we're going to have to say it many times and that's a lot shorter. Now, most people know that the purpose of a table of contents is to outline or summarize the main content of a document, especially long documents, and provide the page numbers where topics can be found. TOCs can be built by hand, but by far the easiest way to do it is to ensure we have used styles for our main headings, and that those styles, if created from scratch, have been properly designated with their outline level. We did this in our Styles chapter and then revisited it when we talked about the outline view. If we have done this work ahead of time as part of our document design, creating the TOC is actually automated and can be done with only a few clicks, even if the document is hundreds or even thousands of pages long. Let's get to work in our business plan that we've opened from the Chapter 8 Project Files folder to see how wonderful and easy this feature can be. First of all, here's a tip. Make sure that you turn off non-printing characters by using the Show Hide option before you create the table of contents. Otherwise, those hidden characters that otherwise may show may cause the actual content to shift in the document, maybe even moving from one page to the other. So for the references to be accurate, those non-printing characters should be turned off. Next thing we're going to do is position the cursor where we want the reference to be. In this case, we're simply going to scroll down to the top of page 2, and we're going to insert it below where it says Table of Content. I'm going to leave that title here for just a second, just as a placeholder. The rest of this is actually fairly simple. Most of what we're discussing in this chapter can be found on the References tab. From the References tab, the very first group is called Table of Contents, and what we can see is that we can choose a table of contents, something called Add Text, and update the table. We, of course, want to use the drop-down for Table of Contents. We have galleries here with lots of different things that we can see, again, just built-in styles, but I want to show you what all of the options are. So we're going to come all the way down to the bottom where it actually says Insert Table of Contents. We'll give that a click. And that opens the window that, if you've ever used it before, is the one that we've used for many versions of Word. Obviously, the gallery simplifies this, but we can still come in and look at the different components. Remember that a table of contents will behave differently if it's printed versus being online or in a web view. Therefore, we have two different options. On the left, we see what the regular print view will look like, and on the right, a web view, which of course includes hyperlinks that let people navigate very quickly and easily to the actual content itself without having to manually scroll. All we have to do is just a couple of simple things. First, do we want to show page numbers? And second, do we want the page numbers to be right aligned? I usually prefer to keep them right aligned. It's kind of like justifying paragraphs. It just keeps things nice and square and symmetrical. We also can choose a tab leader if we'd like. We can choose from dots or dashes or even solid underscores, or you could choose to have no leader at all. That's up to you as well. What we're going to do is we're going to customize this a little bit. We're going to say that we want to have a table of contents that only shows 2 levels. Obviously, the more intricate your document, the more levels you might want to have. And in some documents, you may choose to only have 1. But since we used custom styles, we also want to make sure that our styles are being properly utilized. To do that, we'll click on Options, and we'll simply go through all of the available styles. You will notice that the styles that are built in, like Heading 1 and Heading 2, already have designations as Level 1 and Level 2 Table of Content levels. They're basically the same thing. We need to scroll all the way down to the bottom and see our You Got It heading style and You Got It subheading. When those styles were created, we designated them as Outline Level 1 and Outline Level 2 in the paragraph properties. We just wanted to make sure that these were actually correct. Now that they are, we can simply say OK. We can say OK again. And guess what? There's our beautiful table of contents. The wonderful part about this is we did not have to type a single thing. Everything exactly matches the way that it is in the body of the document, and every page number is absolutely correct. If you were to try to just type this out by hand, using a table or maybe tabs to align everything, not only is it a lot of work, but I can guarantee that no matter how careful you are, you're probably going to have some inconsistencies. This is by far the fastest, easiest, and most accurate way to create a table of contents. That really is all there is to it, but I wanted to show you a couple of things more. If you had text that you want included in your table of contents, but it did not use a style, you could select that text and then click Add Text. When you do that, you'll be able to designate at what level it should be seen. Since we've chosen to only show 2 levels in our options, this is where we're going to see only 2 levels here. If we chose 3 or 4, those would show up as well. We also can say that even though something uses a style, we do not want to show it in the table of contents. For example, we actually typed some text, table of content. First of all, what we might want to do is make sure it's correct with an S on the end. But then, if we select this text, we could choose to format it from the Home tab using the You Got It heading. The challenge is we don't want table of contents to actually show up in our table of contents. I know that gets to be a little strange, but we don't want it to show up. So what do? We simply go back to References, and we say yes, even though that is marked as a style that normally would be used, we do not want to show it in the table. That's all there is to it. As we continue to edit the document, things are going to shift around. So it's always a good idea when you're done with the document, ready for final publishing or final saving, that you probably want to update the table. You can do that by simply clicking on the option in the Table of Contents group on the Reference tab, or because this is just a field, and you notice that when we click on it, it doesn't just select one thing, it selects the whole field, that we can actually right-click, and we could choose to update the field here. Whenever you do that, a table of contents will ask you, do you really want to just update the page numbers because maybe they've shifted, or do you want to update the entire table? That would include all of the headings. We're not going to actually update this, so we'll just say cancel. But the reason the headings are there is because technically we can type here. We could take out or add in text. In doing so, we've customized it to be different than the document. I don't normally recommend that you do that. But that's why when you right-click or you otherwise update the table, it asks you just the page numbers, or do you actually want to put in the page headings based on the document contents itself. Don't forget, by the way, that right-click method is what we use to update any field in Word, whether it's a calculated field in a table or one that reflects data that we're using as maybe part of a footer. Depending on what has changed in the document, we can update page numbers or only update the table here, but fields are fields, and you'll learn that they all work very similarly. If for some reason we decide we don't want a table of contents, the best way to delete it is to use the Remove Table of Contents option from the dialog box we first opened. But why would we want to do that? A table of contents is very useful and a common element in long documents and adds a very professional touch, as well as giving people the ability to find the information that they're looking for.